Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to a series of videos in which I am reading you a book. We delayed a bit, but in a playlist it won't matter. We are reading the Gospel according to St. Matthew. And we are up to a kind of wordy denouement. we're up to a kind of wordy peak in the action here because Jesus and his followers have reached Jerusalem, and Jesus has been preaching and healing people in the great temple, and also casting out moneylenders, and confronting directly the chief priests and scribes of the temple in the heart of their own power. And that's what we're getting in this chapter, and that's also going to get in the next chapter as well, where he is teaching the crowd about the kingdom of heaven, a thing that he's been talking about, but he's also excoriating the Pharisees. So this is chapter 24, and we're in the King James translation. That's why this sounds antique. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to shew him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Talking about the end of the world. He's talking about the end of the world. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? What shall be the signs of thy coming and the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. This is just pure end times prophecy. That's all. With a little bit of persecution complex baked in. Christianity did not rule the world, did not rule every aspect of every modern society when this was written. It's possible to imagine that when this was originally being passed around in oral form or in written forms that we don't know of before the author of this gospel codified it, it's possible that Christians were hated. That we know beyond a doubt that in the ancient world before Christianity gained the Roman Empire, Christians could be hated sects. So this is nodding in that direction. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not seen since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days shall be shortened, there should be no flesh saved. But for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it be possible, they shall deceive the very elect. A second mention of false Christ. Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in a secret chamber, believe it not. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered also. Not exactly the turn of phrase I would use for my own following, but to each his own. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. Yes, a thing with fig trees. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass, till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but not my words. And of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, nor the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, in the King James is no, N-O-E, but that's a change too far, so let's just change it to Noah. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until that day Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall two be in the field, and one shall be taken, and the other left. 2 women shall be grinding at the mill, and one shall be taken, and the other left. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the goodman of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man may cometh. This is a note over and over again. You don't know when this cataclysm will happen. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath ruler over his house, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant, whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and to drink with the drunken, the Lord of the servant shall come in the day when he looketh not for him, and in that hour he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So again, that is the chapter, and again, this is just discussion. There's no action here. No human plot lines are advanced at all. This is Jesus, the millenarian preacher. This is Jesus, the doomsday prophet. This figure in the Gospels that we've read so far is that. He is a doomsday preacher. He is saying, I am coming to herald the end. I am the harbinger of the advent of the kingdom of heaven. Which is not just that phrase, and that change has been altered by later homiletics, later sermonizing, to be entirely spiritual. It's obvious when you read the text, which, let's face it, one of the reasons that we're doing this is because a lot of Christians don't actually read the text. They suffer to have the text read to them in bits and pieces, but they don't sit and read them themselves. When you read the text, it's obvious that is not what Jesus meant. He is not talking here about a spiritual change. He's talking about the end of the world. About the world coming to an end. He makes an explicit reference to the last time the world came to an end with the flood of Noah. And warns the faithful that the people around Noah had no idea what was coming. They went on living just as they were, allegedly in sin, allegedly in depravity, until the waters came, until there was no more hope, until they were caught unawares. The 2 points that I want to make about that are, one, Noah's flood didn't happen. You could stretch a point. You could say that Jesus is talking about it as a story that his listeners would know and would believe, not necessarily what he believes. Again, I think when you read it, that's not true, but you could make that case. But I also want to point out that whether you believe the story happened or not, the fetuses and the little children in the world were not marrying and giving in marriage. They were completely innocent as they are today. And they died in their millions. If this story is true, of course it's not. It's not. The story of Noah's Ark is not true. There was no global flood in the time when humans had civilization on Earth. No matter when you date it, that simply isn't true. Unless you're willing to say that God himself put millions of tons of false evidence in the record. In the archaeological record, the geological record, the dendrological record. Unless you're saying that he did that in order to fool you, then it never happened. But even if it did happen, it's fundamentally immoral. It's a sign of the Old Testament God doing what he did best, what he loved to do, which is kill the innocent along with the guilty. I think it's meant to make the short hairs rise on the back of the necks of the faithful, that this is going to be a severe judgment. But why? Why would it be a severe judgment? We're told, what was it? Pray that your flight be not in winter, and neither on the Sabbath day, and you shall, and woe to them who are with child, or them that are giving suck to children in those days. Well, a woman who is with child can't help the fact that incapacitates her a bit. That is a crudely, blindly, maniacally unjust kind of harvest of the faithful. It's one thing if you're like the people around Noah, marrying and giving in marriage. We all know what that means, right? That's a euphemism for what the translators mean, and probably what the author meant. But the babies and sucklings aren't doing that. The mothers aren't doing that. They're caring for their children. Why should a judgment be blind to that fact if it's all consciously guided? Why does it so much have to resemble an impersonal, natural phenomenon? I don't think we get an answer. We certainly don't get an answer in Daniel, which is the gospel that the scripture that Jesus is quoting here. I could echo the points that I made here that I made with this similar passage in Mark, which is that there are little errors and big errors all throughout here. One little error mentioned already is that Noah's flood didn't really happen. If Jesus is speaking of it as a historical event, he's mistaken. It would be grossly immoral anyway, but it didn't happen. And also that business of Jesus saying, pray that the end of the world doesn't come in winter. We mentioned when we were dealing with this in Mark that this is a character and a writer and an audience who has no idea that the earth is round. There's no idea that there's another hemisphere. And that no matter when the earth comes, it's going to come in winter for somebody, or at night for somebody. That is just a reflexive worldview. I would argue that it's of part and parcel with Jesus saying 2 women will be grinding at a mill, and one of them will disappear and the other one won't. I would argue that is not the character speaking in the language of the people of his audience, but rather a character who cannot imagine there will ever be a day when that isn't true, when those forms of employment aren't around. At this time, technology, such as we would understand it, was so incredibly static that it would go centuries without changing. I think that's reflected here. And of course, there's the larger error, which we've mentioned before. When we've been talking about these Gospels, we mentioned that Jesus makes claims of 2 kinds. One is spiritual and inner. What will make you happy? What will make you miserable? What indicates that you may have sin to deal with? And the other is factual. And often when this character makes factual claims, he is wrong. And the biggest one that he makes is in connection with his role as a millenarian prophet. Because in this chapter, again, he says that people in this generation will still be alive when all of this happens. And it's not metaphorical. It's the sky will open up like lightning from east to west, and you will see Jesus himself, me, coming in glory with an army of angels. The generation listening to Jesus when he said these things did not see that happen. No generation has seen that happen. It's been 2,000 years. So that is just an error. That is an error of a very familiar type. We see millenarian prophets today who routinely go viral now. They routinely go viral, oddly enough, ironically enough. Any doomsday prophet today reaches a larger audience by a factor of 1 million than Jesus ever reached in his own day, talking in the towns of Galilee. Millenarian prophets, doomsday prophets will say that today. They will say, I have carefully calculated this, and it will happen on July 17th, 2020 or something like that, or 2017. There have been end of the world prophecies every year for the last 200 years at least. And in recent times, there are film crews on hand pointed at crowds of people who are expecting to be raptured that just end up standing there because it doesn't happen. It's the big mistake of doomsday prophets, is to be specific. For a little while, Jesus is appropriately vague, saying that what the signs of the end of the world will be that people won't be nice to each other, that there'll be war and rumor of war, that there'll be earthquakes. There are never not going to be those things, and most doomsday prophets know that. They know to tailor their warnings that way. But every once in a while, they get overconfident and give specific. immeasurable, testable, specific. And Jesus does in this passage and in its earlier incarnation in Mark. Says that the people in Mark, he says, the people who are listening to me right now will not all be dead when this happens. That is false. So if you want to, I don't know, if you want to subscribe to inerrancy, to the idea of inerrancy, then you need, if you are a believing Christian and you believe in that, you have to come to some sort of understanding of what this means that gets around the fact that it didn't happen. But that is the whole of this chapter, is just Jesus excoriating, just expounding on the end of the world. And we're going to get more of that before the action picks up in a slalom course to the end. So I will wrap this up for now, and we'll come back to that next time. Thank you, BookTube.